On a land survey, if I know that the distance between my house and a big oak tree in the backyard is 3,000 feet, and I want to convert that into miles, I need to know how many feet are in a mile. So there are 5,280 feet in 1 mile. So then I can make a proportion and say, well, if I have 3,000 feet, I can figure out the number of miles by cross-multiplying. So 3,000 feet is approximately 0.57 miles. The same idea would be used if I want to convert degrees into our other type of measurement of angles into radians, or vice versa, radians into degrees. All I need to know is how many degrees are in radians, or radians into degrees. And you found out today in class that there are pi radians in 180 degrees. So this is going to be our kind of scale factor to change one unit of measure into the other. So if I rotate 300 degrees, that's going to land me down there in the 4th quadrant. Now that number of degrees can also be expressed in radians. So if I want to change 300 degrees into radians, I'm going to take pi radians, we know is 180 degrees. So how many radians is 300 degrees? Now to solve this, I'm just going to cross multiply. So this will be 300 pi is equal to 180x. So solving for x, I'll divide by 180. And now what I'm going to do is just simplify this fraction over here. These zeros would cancel out. 30 and 18 I could reduce by 6. So this would be 5 pi over 3 radians. So my rotation of 300 degrees is the same thing as a rotation of 5 pi over 3 radians. And keep in mind, if you don't want to reduce the 300 over 180 on your own, you can do it on your calculator. 300 divided by 180 is this, and then if I math frac that, there's the 5/3, and we stick that pi back with it, 5 pi over 3. Now let's go the other way. Now let's try changing radians into degrees. So if I'm given 8 radians, how many degrees is that? Well, let's start out with our ratio here, that pi radians is 180 degrees. So if I have 8 radians, I want to know how many degrees that is. And again, I'm just going to cross multiply here. So we're going to get 180 times 8, which is 1,440, which will equal pi times x. So to solve that for x, I'm going to divide by pi. And then I'm just going to take my calculator and do 1440 divided by pi, which will equal 458, about 458 degrees. And yes, that angle is over 360, but keep in mind, this does make sense, because if I go 3.14 radians, that lands me at 180 degrees, and when I go another 3.14 radians, that'll be a total of 6.28, I'm back to 360, so then I still have another radian and some extra to get to go to 8 radians. And last one, let's convert 3 pi over 5 radians into degrees. So here's my initial setup. Pi radians is 180 degrees. 3 pi over 5 radians is going to be how many degrees. So again, I'll cross multiply here. So I'm going to get 180 times 3 pi over 5 equals pi times x. And now solving for this for x, notice when I divide by pi, the pi's are going to cancel out on the right, and they're also going to cancel out over here on the left, because I've got a multiplying by pi and a dividing by pi that are canceling out. So all I need is my calculator to do 180 times 3 divided by 5, which is 108 degrees. And I'll show you a little shortcut here that some people choose to take instead of doing the proportion when you're given a number of pi radians. So keep in mind that this pi, we know, is worth how many degrees? 180. So if we substitute 180 degrees in for pi, then I'm just going to do 3 times 180 divided by 5, which is the same thing we did right down here. 3 times 180 divided by 5.